Today we're going to talk about equations with fractions. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit tricky. I just call them tricky equations, two-step equations with fractions. So we're just going to talk about those. It's kind of, one of them is a one-step equation, one of them is a two-step equation. So first thing I want us to look at is how we're going to get rid of a fraction. So to get rid of a fraction, and we're going to just look in here really quick. If you notice, you have got 2/3 x equals -12 and -40 equals -1/5 x. So I'm talking about if to try to get rid of one of these fractions. So to get rid of a fraction, we will multiply by the reciprocal. Now, we have talked about reciprocals already. Okay, a reciprocal is just as a reminder, reciprocal is the number you multiply a fraction by to get 1. Okay, so reciprocal is the number you multiply a fraction by to get 1. I know you guys have talked about in the past, keep, change, flip. A reciprocal is just a flip, but the reason why it is a reciprocal is because it's something you multiply to get 1. So for example, the reciprocal of 4/5 would be 5/4. We know we multiply across top, so we would get 20/20, which would reduce to 1/2. Okay, we've already talked about this year, but I just wanted to remind you of it. All right, so we are going to multiply by the reciprocal. So for this problem, what we would do is we are going to multiply by the reciprocal, like I just said. So I'm going to rewrite this problem because this one's kind of close to the edge. Well, I made it a little close to the edge. So it is 2/3 x equals -12. Okay? We see that we have a fraction there. We need to multiply by the reciprocal to get rid of that fraction. So to do that, what we will do is we will do this. We will multiply this by 3/2. Okay? Remember, this would be 6/6, which would reduce to 1. Remember, if we do this by 3/2, we're also going to multiply this by 3/2. Now, as a reminder, what that would look like is this. We know that if we have to multiply this, and of course y'all can use your calculators, but I like for you to know how to do it without your calculators. So here is what we would do. We know that to turn -12 into a fraction, it would be -12/1. And we would multiply that by 3/2. I reduce on the diagonals, so this would reduce to 1. This would reduce to 6, so -6 times 3 is -18. If you don't reduce on the diagonals, this is what it would look like. So you would have -12/1 times that 3/2. -12 times 3 is going to be -36. 1 times 2 would be 2, and then we would still get -18 when we reduce. Okay, so the solution to this, like I said, we know that we would cancel these. We cancel out, and I would be left with x is equal to -18, and that's my solution. Once again, if you plugged this in here, you would multiply it, and you would get the -12. All right, let's look at the next one. So this time, we have a -1/5. Okay. So the reciprocal of a -1/5 is, first of all, it's going to have to be negative. So if you have a negative number, its reciprocal is also going to have to be negative. So it's going to be negative. And if we flip that, or if we think about what do we multiply by 1/5 to get 1/2, it would be 5/1, or just 5. So you would do the same thing here, that -5, okay? We would do that negative times a negative. We know it's going to be a positive. 5 times 4 is 20. We would put the other 0, and that would be x. So that's how you get rid of fractions that are attached to your fractions as coefficients. That's how we would get rid of them. All right. So now let's look down at this second part. That is the two-step equations, fraction used as grouping. Now, I said these are tricky, okay? A lot of times my kids get very tricked on these. So let's think about what we do. We are first going to get rid of the multiplication or division, okay? What I mean by that is, and this is a good time to go ahead and write this little, important information or start out here. If there is an expression, now remember, what is an expression? Expression is something that does not have an equal sign, but there is operations, there's numbers, there's variables. So if you notice the difference in this compared to this is just a regular fraction, okay, attached to it. We also worked on some that looked kind of like this, okay. There's a variable up there, but it's not an expression. So this whole thing is an expression. So if there is an expression, y'all can't even see this, sorry y'all. If there's an expression in the numerator, you have to get rid of the denominator first, okay? So we're going to have to get rid of that denominator first. All right, so how do we do that? Well, let's see. So I'm going to rewrite this again because it's really close to the side. So x plus 4 over 3 is going to be equal to that negative 2. So we're going to get rid of the multiplication division first. Basically, we're going to get rid of the division first, okay? Right down here in this 3. We need to get rid of that. How do we do it? Well, how do we do it when we get rid of it down here? We just multiply by 3. So we are going to take that and we're going to multiply both sides, by 3. Okay, and what are we left with? We are then left with simply, these cancel out, so we are left with x plus 4 is going to be equal to negative 6. And now we have an easy one-step equation. And we just go ahead and solve it like we know, where we would do negative 4, negative 4. Y'all know how to do this now. And when we get x equals a negative 10. And you can plug it back in and you would be able to get the solution, okay? So we get rid of that denominator first. If there's an expression in the numerator, we get rid of the denominator first. So let's look at this one. Negative 10 equals negative 8 plus x over negative 5. So we need to get rid of that negative 5. So to do that, we are going to multiply both sides by that denominator. Okay, but multiply both sides by the denominator. Okay, when we do that, we will have negative times a negative is a positive, so we would have a positive 50 equals, these cancel out, negative 8 plus x. Okay, then we're going to do the second part of solving this, which is our one-step equation. We have a negative 8 here. To make that into a 0, we know we have to change that to adding 8 to both sides, and your solution would be 58 equals x, and that's your answer. So that is how, if you have fractions in your equations, that's how you would solve them.